तो दोस्तों, आज का सेमिनार वेबिनार हम शुरू कर रहे हैं, डेमोक्रेसी एट रिस्क। मुझे कुछ लोगों ने कहा कि इसको डिस्कसिंग डेमोक्रेसी भी कहा जा सकता था। आप इतने खतरनाक टाइटल्स क्यों डालते हैं? तो मैंने यही कहा कि घुमा फिरा के कहने की आदत नहीं है, और वरना अनहद अनहद नहीं होता शायद। हम ये वेबिनार बहुत दिनों बाद कर रहे हैं। अनहद ने ही एक्चुअली जब जूम नहीं था, कोविड के दौरान, तो हम लोगों ने वेबिनार्स फेसबुक लाइव शुरू किए थे, और उस सिलसिले में बहुत सारे लोगों को फेसबुक लाइव करना भी सिखाया था। उसके बाद फिर एक लंबा सिलसिला चलता रहा, लेकिन पिछले 1.5 साल से हम वेबिनार ज्यादा कर नहीं पाए। इनफैक्ट Anhad has been working on various issues, but our main focus from where we started, I would say, in 2003 was democracy, secularism, communal harmony. जो पिछले कुछ सालों में हमें लगा, बहुत शिद्दत से लगा कि शायद कहीं खो रहा है, क्योंकि हम इतना कम्युनिटी के काम में इन्वॉल्व हो गए, डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस केसेस एंड वर्किंग ऑन द ग्राउंड। वो वक्त भी बहुत लेता है, और क्योंकि अब उतने रिसोर्सेज नहीं है। अर्लियर वी हैव वर्कड एक्सटेंसिवली, बट अर्लियर वी यूज्ड टू हैव अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल हु वर्कड ऑन द ग्राउंड बिकॉज देयर वाज मनी। पिछले 11 साल से आप सभी लोग जानते हैं, क्योंकि आप सबके पास मेरा व्हाट्सएप मैसेज आता है, वी हैव बीन सर्वाइविंग ओनली ऑन पर्सनल डोनेशंस. So as a result, we have not been able to do major physical national conventions or even conventions in various states. हम लोग पहले बहुत सारी states में जाके physically बहुत कुछ करते थे, वो हो नहीं पा रहा। तो फिर हमने सोचा कि दोबारा से ये वेबिनार्स का सिलसिला शुरू करते हैं। और जो आज का वेबिनार है, ये पहला वेबिनार है। हमने पूरी ये सीरीज हम करने जा रहे हैं, डेमोक्रेसी एट रिस्क नाम से। ये पहला उसका वेबिनार है, और इसके बाद भी अभी तो ये इरादा है कि हर 15 दिन पे करेंगे। हालांकि अनहद की आदत थोड़ी खराब है, हमारे वेबिनार्स में हमेशा सैकड़ों लोग रहे हैं। क्योंकि बहुत अरसे बाद हो रहा है, इसलिए शायद आज अम, अभी तक 67 लोग आए हैं, और ज्वाइन करेंगे होपफुली। बट अगर 5 लोग भी हों, तो मुझे लगता है कि अपनी आवाज को बुलंद करना और कहते रहना बहुत जरूरी है। अ, जो हाल है मुल्क के, उसके बारे में हमारे पास बहुत अच्छे स्पीकर्स हैं जो बोलने जा रहे हैं, इसलिए मैं उस पर नहीं बोलूंगी। अ, मैं सिर्फ यही कहना चाहती हूँ कि पिछले खासतौर से 11 साल में, अभी तो खैर हम 50 साल भी ऑब्जर्व कर रहे हैं इमरजेंसी के, और हम में से बहुत लोगों ने इमरजेंसी देखी है और वो हालात देखे हैं। लेकिन ये जो 11 साल से अनडिक्लेयर्ड इमरजेंसी पूरे देश में लगी हुई है, वो शायद उस इमरजेंसी से भी बहुत ज्यादा भयानक है। और उसके किसी भी फील्ड में हम देख लें, चाहे फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन हो, अटैक्स हो, जर्नलिस्ट पे हो, एकेडमिक्स पे हो, आर्टिस्ट पे हो, किसी के ऊपर भी जो बोलने की आजादी है, जो हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल राइट्स हैं, और बहुत सारे ऐसे और इश्यूज जिस पे आज चर्चा होगी, उन सब पे मुझे लगता है कि इतना बड़ा हमला कभी नहीं हुआ था। और इस तरह से मुल्क कभी खामोश भी नहीं रहा था, जब दुनिया में एक मुल्क में जेनोसाइड हो रहा हो, जहां पे हजारों बच्चों को मार दिया गया हो, और उस पे हमारा मुल्क कोई आवाज ना उठाए। ऐसा भी हमारी हिस्ट्री में दिखता नहीं। बल्कि अभी मैं कल देख रही थी कि जो एक बीडीएस मूवमेंट का वेबसाइट है, उनका एक इंफॉर्मेशन आया कि एक पानी का जहाज निकला है बॉम्बे से, जो मिलिट्री इक्विपमेंट लेके इजराइल जा रहा है। तो इट वाज क्वाइट शॉकिंग। शॉकिंग तो नहीं कहूंगी, बिकॉज उसके अलावा हम कुछ एक्सपेक्ट भी नहीं करते इन सरकारों से जो बैठी हैं, जो बहुत ही अथॉरिटेरियन और डिक्टेटरशिप वाली हैं। एंड इनफैक्ट आई मीन आई कॉल देम सेमी फैशिस्ट फोर्सेस। उनसे कुछ एक्सपेक्ट नहीं करते। लेकिन इस बीच में, मुझे बाकी लोगों का नहीं पता, लेकिन एक मायूसी का माहौल बना है, और उसमें हम भी शामिल हैं। ऐसा नहीं है कि हम लोग मायूस नहीं हैं। ऐसा लगने लगा है कि शायद हमारी जिंदगी में हालात नहीं बदलेंगे। तो ये एक मेन वजह थी कि हमने सोचा दोबारा से हम पूरे हिंदुस्तान में रीच आउट करें लोगों से जो हमारे साथ जुड़े रहे हैं बहुत सारी कैंपेन्स में। बातें अमन की में हजारों ग्रुप्स जुड़े थे। फिर 1.5 साल पहले हमने मेरे घर आके तो देखो कैंपेन किया, उसमें 15 अगस्त से 2 अक्टूबर तक 1 लाख से ज्यादा लोगों ने उसमें पार्टिसिपेट किया। तो हमारी कोशिश इन वेबिनार से यही है कि दोबारा कहीं ना कहीं रीग्रुपिंग करें, कुछ रिवाइटलाइज करें, और रेजिस्टेंस जो अ, अभी तक किसानों और मजदूरों और स्टूडेंट्स में काफी एक्टिवली दिख रहा है, वो सिविल सोसाइटी भी उसमें दोबारा से शामिल हो। बहुत सारे लोग शामिल भी हैं, लेकिन हमें लग रहा था कि हम कहीं ना कहीं उससे पीछे छूट रहे हैं, तो दोबारा उसको एक्टिवाइज करना जरूरी है। इसी सिलसिले में ये वेबिनार शुरू कर रहे हैं। उम्मीद है कि आप लोग आगे भी ज्वाइन करते रहेंगे। हर 15 दिन पे एक करने का इरादा है। आज का वेबिनार जो है वो प्रोफेसर मृदुला मुखर्जी चेयर कर रही हैं। शी इज अ वेरी वेल नोन हिस्टोरियन, फॉर्मर चेयरपर्सन ऑफ सेंटर ऑफ हिस्टोरिकल स्टडीज JNU एंड फॉर्मर डायरेक्टर ऑफ नेहरू मेमोरियल म्यूजियम लाइब्रेरी। बाकी स्पीकर्स को वो इंट्रोड्यूस करेंगी। पुरुषोत्तम जी हैं, पुरुषोत्तम अग्रवाल, मल्लिका साराभाई एंड AR वासवी। So I would hand it over to Mridula ji, and she will take it forward. Thank you very much everyone for joining this, and do pass on the words to others so that every 15 days we can keep on meeting and discussing. Thank you.
Thank you, Shabnam. Uh, Shabnam has already explained to you the purpose of this seminar, and she has already introduced me as a historian. But let me also introduce myself as slightly differently. I am one of the tribe of unemployed historians today, who have been convinced that their job is much better done by politicians, TV anchors, WhatsApp influencers, and whatnot. I mean, every day we are told that the kind of history we've written, the kind of work we've done is actually distorted our past and has misled the youth. So it is to that tribe that I belong, and it is what shall I say, an embattled discipline and a threatened tribe. So beginning with that note about what is the state of our democracy, where professionals, people who've spent their entire lives working in different disciplines in universities and civil society organizations, are now decried as not having, they are not recognized as having contributed to nation building, but in fact, increasingly, the label of anti-national is what is reserved for them. I think there is no sadder way of reflecting on what has happened to our democracy than to look at the state of our educational institutions today, about whom the less said, the better. And I happen to have worked for more than 40 years in one of those, which is at the moment being battered and has been under severe attack now for the last many years. I would also like to just say in introduction that the last few days have been very enlightening, because the manner in which the present regime has, through its, what shall I say, fawning media, suddenly realized that the emergency was the worst thing that ever happened to Indian society. And this spate of programs and articles and what have you on to observe the death of democracy, as it is called. And the only thing good I think that's happened also as a result of that is that many people who disagree with that, not they disagree with that the fact that the emergency did attack democracy, but who disagree with the manner in which this regime is projecting itself as a defender of democracy and trying to paint Indira Gandhi and the Congress and the emergency as the only negative thing that's ever happened in the entire life of independent India, with no critical look at what has been going on in the last 11 years. However, as I said, this has provided an opportunity, and fortunately, some of the same newspapers and all who are carrying these very critical but almost adulatory of the present regime uh, are also carrying a lot of critical articles about where people have spoken up and said that, yes, we agree that the emergency was wrong, but what has been happening is an undeclared emergency. I think in the last few days, this term, undeclared emergency, has come into currency. So I see the effort of the government to use its propaganda machinery to convey this message as having been a blessing in disguise, because so many people are coming out and now speaking up about what is happening now. Because I think when you go beyond a point in violating any norm of truthfulness, decency, whatever, people do begin to speak up. I think, and what Shabnam said, I want to add to that, and with a reference to an article by Suhash Palsekar in the Indian Express editorial page 2 days ago on the anniversary of the uh, emergency, where he compares the two situations and tries to analyze whether those things which were the marker of the attack on democracy during the emergency are present now. I won't go into the details. And he kind of ticks off that, yes, they are. So even so, today is at least as bad as what happened in the emergency. But then he says an additional thing, which I think is very, very important for us to recognize. He said, but there is an additional feature today. And that, he says, is the rise of the vigilante groups and the kind of freedom that is being given to them with nods and approval, obviously from the top, to do what they like. And that, he says, the manner in which the ideological onslaught through these groups, particularly with the ideology of Hindutva, is happening, that is the additional and very negative part. And he goes on to say that how, while it is still possible to repair and correct the mistakes and rebuild institutions and structures, what is very difficult is changing the mindset of the people. And it is precisely in this respect, in terms of the spread of communal ideology, that this regime has gone much further. In fact, that feature was not there during the emergency. There were many other faults, but this feature was not there. And I think it's very important that we recognize what Suhas Palsekar has pointed out to us. We have a very, very fine list of speakers today, and I will introduce them as we go along. The first person who will speak today is Professor Purushottam Agarwal, who has been a professor of literature, Hindi literature at the Jawaharlal Nehru University. He's also an alumnus of Jawaharlal Nehru University, and then was a member of the Union Public Service Commission. And then after that, again, returned to his profession as an academic and as a teacher for many years. He is the author of seminal works on Kabir and a host of other books, which I will not list for you. And he is also the author of a very popular book, which was called Who is Mother India, which is a collection of writings by and on Jawaharlal Nehru, which has really, become a very, very popular book. And Purushottam is a well-known public figure, a public intellectual, known for his sharp wit and blunt language, apart from being a very accomplished speaker. So I now invite Purushottam to take the floor.
थैंक यू मैम। मैं आप लोगों का, शबनम का और बाकी दोस्तों का आभारी हूँ, और ज़्यादा किसी तरह की औपचारिकता में जाए बिना अपनी बात कहूँगा। अभी मृदुला जी ने कहा कि वो उन इतिहासकारों में हैं जिन पर यह आरोप है कि उन्होंने इतिहास को डिस्टॉर्ट किया और ये सब। पिछले दिनों जो चीज़ें होती रही हैं उसका एक अच्छा नतीजा ये निकला है कि बहुत सारे लोगों की इतिहास में सचमुच दिलचस्पी हो गई है। और ये बात लोग रियलाइज करने लगे हैं कि इतिहास केवल अतीत का मामला नहीं होता, इतिहास का गहरा संबंध हमारे वर्तमान और मुस्तकबिल से होता है। मैं खुद औपचारिक रूप से इतिहास का स्टूडेंट नहीं हूँ, लेकिन जो काम मैंने किया है वो एक तरह से इतिहास का ही काम है और हिस्टोरियन फ्रेंड्स ने उसको एप्रिसिएट किया है। कबीर वाले काम के बारे में जो आपने जिक्र किया, तो उसमें अर्ली मॉडर्न इंडिया के बारे में बहुत सारी बातें हैं, बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं जिनको लेकर इतिहासकारों में दिलचस्पी रही। इसी तरह नेहरू वाली किताब का जो इंट्रोडक्शन है उसके बारे में भी ये बात है। तो इतिहास से एक प्रोफेशनल हिस्टोरियन ना होते हुए भी एक नागरिक के तौर पर, एक एकेडमिक के तौर पर मेरा वास्ता है और मैं अपने आप को एक शौकिया इतिहासकार तो कह ही सकता हूँ। तो ऐसी स्थिति में ये बात कहने के बाद अब मैं आज की बात पर आता हूँ। देखिए, अभी अनडिक्लेयर्ड इमरजेंसी की बात चल रही थी। आज से कोई 10 बरस पहले मैं उन दिनों चला जाता था टेलीविज़न पर, अब तो जाता नहीं। लेकिन आज से 10 बरस पहले मैं एक प्रोग्राम में था और वो बहुत ही लोकप्रिय, हम लोगों के बीच में अत्यंत लोकप्रिय एंकर का कार्यक्रम था एनडीटीवी पर। उसमें मैं था और बीजेपी की ओर से संबित पात्रा थे। तो उसमें, हाँ, वो 2015 में वही इमरजेंसी के 40 साल, यही जून का महीना था। आज 50 साल हुए हैं, तो तब 40 साल हुए थे और मुझे बुलाया गया था उसमें। तो बात यही चली इमरजेंसी को लेकर के। तो मैंने उसमें एक बात कही कि देखिए, वर्तमान सरकार को, वर्तमान प्रधानमंत्री को इमरजेंसी डिक्लेयर करने की जरूरत नहीं है। वो बिना इमरजेंसी डिक्लेयर किए भी इमरजेंसी जैसी स्थिति बना सकते हैं और बनाएंगे। मुझे बहुत रोचक लगा कि बीजेपी के प्रवक्ता तो ये सुनकर नाराज हुए ही, एंकर साहब उनसे भी ज्यादा नाराज हो गए। उन्हें लगा कि मैं अपना बीजेपी विरोध को ज्यादा ही खींच रहा हूँ और इस तरह की निराधार बातें कर रहा हूँ। आज 10 बरस बाद ये याद करके मुझे एक अजीब तरह की खुशी होती है। उन्होंने मेरे लिए एक शब्द का इस्तेमाल किया था, आप तो प्रॉफिट ऑफ डूम जैसी बातें कर रहे हैं। तो मैंने कहा था, आप मुझे प्रॉफिट ऑफ डूम कहिए, मैं कह सकता हूँ कि मैं एक अच्छे भविष्य वक्ता की तरह बात कर रहा हूँ। क्योंकि बचपन में थोड़ी बहुत हाथ आजमाई मैंने ज्योतिष में भी की है। तो आप चाहें तो इसे मेरी ज्योतिषीय भविष्यवाणी मान लें, लेकिन ऐसा होगा। और उसके बाद जो घटनाक्रम हुआ 2016 में जेएनयू, और उसके बाद तमाम सारी घटनाएं, विजिलांते की चर्चा हुई, और यानी आज जो स्थिति है, कानूनी तौर से कुछ करने की जरूरत नहीं है। लोग अपने आप में समझदार होते चले जा रहे हैं। सेल्फ सेंसरशिप लोग अपने आप लागू कर रहे हैं। कोई भी मसला हो, लोग जानते हैं कि भाई चुप रहो, क्योंकि पता नहीं कहां से किस तरह हमला हो जाए। और हमला केवल फिजिकल नहीं, किसी भी सेंसिटिव आदमी के लिए सोशल मीडिया पर जिस तरह की गालियां उसको दी जा सकती है, जिस तरह का गंद उसके बारे में लिखा जा सकता है, या किसी तरह के कानूनी पचड़ों में उसे फंसाया जा सकता है, तो लोग अपने आप में समझदार हो गए हैं कि भैया कुछ कहना है तो बहुत सोच समझ के, वरना बोलना ही नहीं है। जो स्थिति इमरजेंसी डिक्लेयर होने पर थी कि नाई की दुकानों पर लिखा रहता था कि साहब पॉलिटिक्स ना की बातें ना करें, आज लिखा कहीं ना हो, लेकिन आप खुद अपने अनुभव से जानते हैं कि लोग पब्लिक प्लेसेस पर पॉलिटिकल ओपिनियंस को बहुत ज़्यादा जोर से एयर करना अवॉइड करते हैं। और ये हिंदुस्तान जैसे देश में, जिसमें कि हर आदमी पॉलिटिक्स का एक्सपर्ट है, लेकिन लोग बात करना अवॉइड करते हैं इस समय, क्योंकि लोगों को पता है कि कानूनी कार्रवाई की बात नहीं है, वहां भीड़ में ही कोई ऐसा व्यक्ति मौजूद हो सकता है जो आपकी पिटाई करने लगे और आप पर कुछ नहीं करते बनेगा। दूसरी बात, आज ही अखबार में आया है, आरएसएस के सर कार्यवाह जनरल सेक्रेटरी उस बोले साहब ने मांग की है कि संविधान में जो दो शब्द जोड़े गए बाद में, सेकुलर और सोशलिस्ट, इनको हटाया जाए। देखिए, कोई भी संविधान किसी समाज की वास्तविकता को रिप्रेजेंट नहीं करता। संविधान इज नॉट अ मिरर, संविधान इज अ काइंड ऑफ लैंप। वो समाज के सपने को दिखाता है, उस समाज में लोग क्या चाहते हैं ये दिखाता है। अब ये बहुत स्पष्ट है, सोशलिस्ट तो चलिए ठीक है, सोशलिस्ट को लेकर के बहुत सारे लोगों को ऐतराज रहा है, नहीं होना चाहिए, लेकिन बहरहाल है। लेकिन सेकुलर शब्द से ऐतराज बहुत मानी खेज है, और खास करके उन लोगों द्वारा जो ये कहते नहीं थकते कि साहब हिंदुस्तानी हिंदू ट्रेडिशन या हिंदू रिलीजन तो बाय डेफिनेशन सेकुलर है। अगर हिंदू ट्रेडिशन हिंदू रिलीजन बाय डेफिनेशन सेकुलर है तो संविधान में सेकुलर शब्द का तो स्वागत किया जाना चाहिए, लेकिन नहीं। कारण यह है कि वो जानते हैं कि सेकुलर लिखा है संविधान में तो एक ऐसी स्थिति है जिसके चलते जो उनका डिजाइन है उसमें कुछ बाधा पड़ती है। तीसरी बात जो हम लोगों को सोचनी चाहिए वो ये, मैंने 2015 का जिक्र किया, उसके 3 साल पहले का अगर आप याद करें, अभी मृदुला जी ने कहा कि मैं ब्लंट, और बात सही है, मुझे कई बार दुख होता है अपने दोस्तों को दुखी करने में, लेकिन आई कांट हेल्प इट। जरा अन्ना आंदोलन याद कीजिए। इस देश में, अगर मैं गलत हूं तो मुझे तुरंत करेक्ट करें मित्र लोग, शिवसेना और राष्ट्रीय जनता दल को छोड़कर किसी पॉलिटिकल पार्टी ने उस आंदोलन का विरोध किया था? रोचक बात यह कि ये दो पार्टियां थी जिन्होंने कहा था कि भ्रष्टाचार का सारा तमाशा बेकार की बात है, इस आंदोलन में कोई दम नहीं है और इसके इरादे कुछ और हैं। क्या ये सच नहीं है कि हमारे लीडिंग लिबरल्स, लेफ्ट विंग इंटेलेक्चुअल्स, even civil society activists and formations, they all went gaga on that so-called India against corruption? क्या ये सच नहीं है? मान लीजिए कि वो सरकार बड़ी करप्ट थी, बड़ी खराब थी सरकार मनमोहन सिंह की, लेकिन क्या इतना पॉलिटिकल विवेक हमने इस्तेमाल करने की कोशिश की कि अगर ये सरकार हटती है तो इसको रिप्लेस कौन करेगा? किसके पास इतना बड़ा संगठन है कि सारे देश में किसी तरह का मोबिलाइजेशन कर सके? इससे जुड़ी हुई एक बात जो मैं कहना चाहता हूं, जिस पर हम सब लोगों को बहुत ध्यान से सोचना चाहिए। ये मैं मानता हूं, और पुनः अगर मैं गलत कह रहा हूं तो प्लीज करेक्ट मी। दो बातें। एक तो ये कि दुर्भाग्य से इस समय इस देश में केवल आरएसएस एक ऐसा संगठन है जिसके पास फ्यूचर ऑफ इंडिया का एक बहुत क्लियर रोड मैप है। हम उसे पसंद करें ना करें वो एक अलग मसला है, लेकिन आरएसएस नोज व्हाट इट वांट्स। इसीलिए उनकी रणनीतियां बदलती रहें, वो कभी कुछ चीजें बैक बर्नर पर रख दें, कभी फ्रंट बर्नर पर रख दें, कभी कह दें कि साहब 370 पर कोई बात नहीं करनी, हमें यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड पर बात नहीं करनी, ये सब बात की बातें हैं, बाद में देखा जाएगा। अगर आप इतिहास में जाएं, हम लोग इतिहास की बात कर रहे हैं, 1984 85 बल्कि 88 तक ऑफिशियली बीजेपी कहती थी कि राम मंदिर आंदोलन से हमारा कोई लेना देना नहीं, वो विश्व हिंदू परिषद का आंदोलन है, बीजेपी हैज नथिंग टू डू विद इट। और उसके बाद क्या हुआ, किस तरह रथ यात्रा हुई और सब हुआ, यानी आखिरकार 2022-23 में वो मंदिर बन गया, 24 में मंदिर बन गया, और स्थिति ये हो गई कि अब उसका विरोध करना किसी पॉलिटिकल पार्टी के लिए मुमकिन नहीं रहा है। अभी जो बात हम लोग कर रहे थे कि उस तरह के प्रोविजंस लगाने की जरूरत ही नहीं है, कारण यह है हम इस बात को समझने की कोशिश करें कि जो समाज का कॉमन सेंस है उसमें बुनियादी बदलाव आया है। विजिलांते ग्रुप्स का होना लोगों को अटपटा नहीं लगता। एक, यानी भारत की, अभी 1 मिनट के लिए बात छोड़ दें, वो जोहरान ममदानी न्यूयॉर्क में प्राइमरी क्या जीत गए डेमोक्रेटिक पार्टी की, वहां जो मेल्ट डाउन है उन लोगों का, राइट विंगर्स का, इवन कुछ डेमोक्रेट्स का भी, और यहाँ भारत में जो हालत है, टेलीविजन वाले जो है कार्यक्रम चला रहे हैं कि लिबर्टी की मूर्ति को अब बुर्का पहना दिया जाएगा, और ये किसी को अटपटा नहीं लग रहा है, क्योंकि मन इतना बदल दिया गया है, या तो इतना डरा दिया गया है, या इतना इनडिफरेंट कर दिया गया है, या इतना इस प्रोजेक्ट में पार्टिसिपेटिव बना दिया गया है कि लोगों को ये चीजें अटपटी नहीं लग रही है। यानी ममदानी का मुसलमान होना सबसे बड़ी समस्या है, संभवतः वही अकेली एक समस्या है, बाकी जो कुछ है सो ठीक है। यही स्थिति आप यहाँ हमारे यहाँ देखें, अपने देश में देखें आप, हम लोग ये बात बार बार भूलते रहे हैं। अन्ना आंदोलन पुनः उसका एक उदाहरण था कि डेमोक्रेसी केवल नंबर गेम नहीं है। डेमोक्रेसी नॉर्म्स का मामला है, एटीट्यूड्स का मामला है, इंस्टीट्यूशंस का मामला है। इमरजेंसी का विरोध जिन लोगों ने किया और इमरजेंसी को लेकर आज भी हम अनकंफर्टेबल फील करते हैं, तो इसीलिए करते हैं ना कि नॉर्म्स वायलेट किए गए, इंस्टीट्यूशंस को कमजोर किया गया, मनमानी की गई, इसीलिए करते हैं ना। लेकिन आज जो स्थिति है, मैं फिर से कहूं कि इमरजेंसी फॉर्मली डिक्लेयर करने की जरूरत ही नहीं है। आप जेएनयू को ले लीजिए, अभी जेएनयू की चर्चा हो रही थी, किसी यूनिवर्सिटी को ले लीजिए, प्राइवेट यूनिवर्सिटी को ले लीजिए। एक प्रोफेसर अपनी पर्सनल ओपिनियन व्यक्त करता है, दुनिया भर की यूनिवर्सिटीज में प्रोफेसर अपनी ओपिनियन व्यक्त करते हैं। मैंने तो आज तक मतलब पिछले 2-4 साल के पहले कभी ऐसा नहीं सुना कि कोलंबिया यूनिवर्सिटी कहे कि फलाने प्रोफेसर के लेख से हमारा कोई लेना देना नहीं है। दैट गोज विदाउट सेइंग भाई। मृदुला मुखर्जी जो रिसर्च जेएनयू में रहते हुए कर रही हैं या किसी अखबार में लेख लिख रही हैं, तो उसको जेएनयू थोड़ी ही ओन करता है एज एन इंस्टीट्यूशन। वो एक स्कॉलर की ओपिनियन है, ठीक है, दैट इज हाउ इट वर्क्स। लेकिन मालूम पड़ा कि बस वो का यूनिवर्सिटी बता रही है कि साहब इस लेख से हमारा कोई लेना देना नहीं, क्योंकि उन्हें मालूम है कि अगर नहीं बताएंगे तो क्या होगा। उसके बाद उनके फाउंडर्स में से एक लेख लिख के साबित भी कर रहे हैं कि जो कुछ उन्होंने किया वो कितना सही था। इसलिए कॉमन सेंस बदला है, सबसे बड़ी कामयाबी है। डेमोक्रेसी को अगर एक नंबर गेम के रूप में आप देखें तो इस बात पर ध्यान देने की जरूरत है कि नरेंद्र मोदी कोई सैनिक विद्रोह के जरिए सत्ता में नहीं आए। नरेंद्र मोदी, आप चुनाव की प्रक्रिया पर सवाल उठाते रहिए, इलेक्शन कमीशन को क्वेश्चन करते रहिए, ईवीएम को क्वेश्चन करते रहिए, लेकिन एट द एंड ऑफ द डे वो डेमोक्रेटिक ढंग से देश के प्रधानमंत्री बने। डोनाल्ड ट्रंप डेमोक्रेटिक ढंग से राष्ट्रपति चुने गए। तो जब हमने डेमोक्रेसी को केवल नंबर्स में तब्दील मान लिया, अपने खुद के दिमाग में मान लिया, डेमोक्रेटिक टेम्परामेंट को बढ़ाने की, उस पर ध्यान देने की कोई जरूरत नहीं समझी, करप्शन जैसे इशूज पर पोजीशन लेने के पहले ये सोचने की जरूरत नहीं समझी कि अगर ये सरकार गिरती है तो इसकी जगह क्या सरकार आने वाली है। ऐसा तो हो नहीं सकता कि कोई सरकार ना हो। मनमोहन सिंह की सरकार करप्ट है, ठीक है, हट जाएगी, उसकी जगह किसकी सरकार आने वाली है, और वो कितनी करप्ट और कितनी कम करप्ट और कितनी गैर करप्ट होने वाली है। और ये कोई ऐसा थोड़ी कि अभी इसी चुनाव के बाद हो गया कि सारे करप्ट लोग बीजेपी की वॉशिंग मशीन में घुसकर साफ सुथरे निकल आए। एक प्रॉब्लम ये हुई है मृदुला जी कि इस देश में इतिहास का रोना जितना शुरू हुआ है इन दिनों, मैं कभी कभी महसूस करता हूँ, और इन दिनों चूंकि महाभारत पर काम कर रहा हूँ, तो मैं देखता हूँ कि महाभारत में बार बार ये बात रेखांकित की गई है अलग अलग ढंग से कि अगर कोई समाज भूलने लगता है तो बड़े खतरे पैदा होते हैं। और बार बार ये आता है कि ऐसा पहले भी हो चुका है। कोई सवाल पूछता है कोई कैरेक्टर भीष्म से, कृष्ण से, किसी से, तो जवाब इस तरह शुरू होता है कि इसके पहले भी ऐसा हो चुका है, ये सवाल पहले उठ चुका है। करप्शन, हम पंडित सुखराम को भूल गए, जिनकी वजह से 2-3 महीने लोकसभा नहीं चलने पाई थी, और उसके बाद पंडित जी जो है बड़े आराम से भाजपा में शामिल हो गए थे। और हम करप्शन हम इमरजेंसी के बाद जो सरकार बनी थी उसका सारा किस्सा भूल गए। वो भी करप्शन को लेकर बड़ी भारी बातें उसमें हुई थी। तो मुझे लगता यह है कि अगर हम जैसे लोग जो डेमोक्रेटिक वैल्यूज को लेकर चिंतित हैं, जो इन बातों को मानते हैं, मुझे लगता है कि जब तक हम अपने आप को ये बार बार याद नहीं दिलाते कि डेमोक्रेसी इज नॉट मियरली अ गेम ऑफ नंबर्स, इट्स अबाउट एटीट्यूड्स, इट्स अबाउट इंस्टीट्यूशंस। और एटीट्यूड को बदलने की जो लगातार कोशिश की गई है, उसमें कितना हस्तक्षेप हम कर पा रहे हैं, कितना नहीं कर पा रहे हैं, असली सवाल ही है। और वो तभी संभव है, आखिरी बात मैं कहना चाहता हूं अपनी ओर से, ऐसा हस्तक्षेप तभी संभव है जब आपके पास एक ग्रैंड नैरेटिव हो। चाहे दलित की बात हो, चाहे स्त्री की बात हो, चाहे अल्पसंख्यक की बात हो, ये सब बहुत महत्वपूर्ण जरूरतें हैं, बहुत महत्वपूर्ण बातें हैं, डेमोक्रेसी ने से डिफाइन होती है। लेकिन यू हैव टू हैव अ ग्रैंड नैरेटिव, और वो ग्रैंड नैरेटिव, ये बात मैं कई बार कह चुका हूं, फिर से दोहराना चाहता हूं, नेशनलिज्म के अलावा और कुछ नहीं हो सकता। हमने अब ये बात हम लोग रियलाइज करने लगे कि साहब हिंदू ट्रेडिशन हमने उनको पूरी थमा दी, हम हिंदू के बारे में कुछ नहीं जानते, वो हिंदुत्व के नाम पर हिंदुइज्म को डिस्टॉर्ट कर रहे हैं वगैरह वगैरह वगैरह। हमने तो नेशनलिज्म भी पूरे का पूरा उनको थमा दिया है। वी हैव कन्वीनियंटली फॉरगॉटन, मतलब थ्योरेटिकली आप कहते रहिए और वो सही भी है कि थ्योरेटिकली नेशनलिज्म किस तरह फासिज्म में बदलता है वगैरह वगैरह, लेकिन जिन समाजों में कॉलोनियल एक्सपीरियंस रहा है और जो आज पोस्ट कॉलोनियल समाज हैं, वहाँ नेशनलिज्म की ट्रेजेक्ट्री एग्जैक्टली वैसी नहीं होती जैसी फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड में रही है। ये हमें समझना चाहिए। हिंदुस्तान में असली झगड़ा आज़ादी के दिनों से लेके आज तक बुनियादी तौर से वर्सन्स ऑफ नेशनलिज्म के बीच में ही है। आप अगर अभी भी देखें तो हिंदुत्व की जो पॉलिटिक्स है वो अपने आप को हिंदू कम्युनल नहीं कहती, ये हम लोग कहते हैं। वो अपने आप को हिंदू नेशनलिस्ट कहते हैं। जिन्ना दुनिया भर के मुसलमानों के लिए नहीं लड़ रहे थे, वो हिंदुस्तानी मुस्लिम कौम के लिए, मुस्लिम नेशन के लिए एक देश बनाने के लिए लड़ रहे थे। तो आप हिंदू कम्युनलिज्म मुस्लिम कम्युनलिज्म कहिए, उन दोनों के सेल्फ परसेप्शन में वो नेशनलिज्म, एंड दे रिप्रेजेंट अ मोर ऑथेंटिक नेशनलिज्म अकॉर्डिंग टू देम। So the point is that can we really think of democracy while totally ignoring the emotional as well as historical force and importance of the idea of nationalism? सवाल ये है, जब तक हम एक इंक्लूसिव डेमोक्रेटिक नेशनलिज्म को खुल के ओन नहीं करते और उसको अपने पॉलिटिक्स में और अपने सिविल सोसाइटी एक्टिविज्म में अंडरलाइन नहीं करते, मुझे नहीं लगता कि हम डेमोक्रेसी की हिफाजत कर पाएंगे या सेकुलरिज्म, जिसके बिना हिंदुस्तान में डेमोक्रेसी की कल्पना असंभव है, उसकी हिफाजत कर पाएंगे। हम ये कभी ना भूलें कि हिंदुस्तान के नेशनल मूवमेंट के जो लीडर थे वो कम्युनलिज्म का काउंटर कम्युनलिज्म की काउंटर कैटेगरी सेकुलरिज्म को नहीं, नेशनलिज्म को बताते थे। गांधी और नेहरू और पटेल अपने आप को और अपने प्रोग्राम को नेशनलिस्ट प्रोग्राम कहते थे। हिंदू महासभा और आरएसएस के प्रोग्राम को कम्युनल प्रोग्राम कहते थे। मुस्लिम लीग के प्रोग्राम को कम्युनल प्रोग्राम कहते थे। तो मुझे लगता है कि अगर डेमोक्रेसी को बचाना है, जो कि जरूरी है, हम सबके लिए एग्जिस्टेंशियल जरूरत है, एग्जिस्टेंशियल थ्रेट है हम सबके निजी जीवन के लिए भी, तो मुझे लगता है कि अनलेस एंड अनटिल वी रियली go in for a recharged version of inclusive and secular nationalism, तब तक माफ कीजिएगा, मुझे नहीं लगता कि डेमोक्रेसी और सेकुलरिज्म इस मुल्क में बच पाएगा। क्योंकि मैं फिर से कहूं कि जिस तरह की स्थितियां हैं, जिस तरह का वातावरण है, जिस तरह का सत्ता तंत्र है, और वो सत्ता तंत्र बनाने में उन्हीं लोगों का भी बहुत बड़ा योगदान है जो आज उसको लेकर के बिल बिला रहे हैं। यूएपीए हो या ईवीएम हो, ये नरेंद्र मोदी का आविष्कार तो है नहीं, ये तो उन्हें मिले हैं और उसका उन्होंने अपने ढंग से इस्तेमाल किया है। तो इसलिए जब तक हम एक प्रॉपर इमेजिनेशन, प्रॉपर पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ फ्यूचर, विच टू माय माइंड इज डेमोक्रेटिक एंड इंक्लूसिव नेशनलिज्म, वो लेके नहीं चलेंगे, मुझे सच कहूं तो बहुत उम्मीद नहीं है। थैंक यू।
थैंक यू पुरुषोत्तम। आई थिंक सब लोग मेरे ख्याल सहमत होंगे कि पुरुषोत्तम ने बहुत ही जरूरी बातें जो हैं वो हमारे सामने रखी हैं। लास्ट पॉइंट जो उन्होंने एम्फसाइज कर रहे हैं राष्ट्रवाद पे, नेशनलिज्म पे, कि कितना जरूरी है कि हम उसको समझें और किस तरह से उसकी व्याख्या करनी आज के संदर्भ में हमें जरूरी है। एक डेमोक्रेटिक इंक्लूसिव नेशनलिज्म एज एन ऑल्टरनेटिव टू द distorted nationalism, or the what others call, some call pseudo nationalism, or I would even say we should call it, it's an anti-national ideology. In fact, if I may add, जवाहरलाल नेहरू तो साफ जो है कम्युनलिज्म को सिर्फ ये नहीं कहते थे कि ये कम्युनल है, वो तो उसको साफ एंटी नेशनल कहते थे। उनकी राइटिंग्स में तो आपको बहुत क्लियरली ये डेफिनेशन मिल जाएगी। और बिल्कुल आपने ठीक कहा, और ये भी बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग है कि जो हिंदू महासभा और आरएसएस वाले थे, उनकी भी जो राइटिंग्स हैं उसमें वो किस तरह से जब एनालाइज करते हुए कहते हैं हिंदूज आर द नेशन, Not Hindus are a community or a political community. Hindus are the nation, Muslims are the community. तो ये डिस्टिंक्शन ये नहीं कि दो कम्युनिटीज हैं जो आपस में जिनके अलग अलग इंटरेस्ट्स हैं, पर अपने आप को एज प्रेजेंटिंग एज द नेशन और दूसरे को प्रेजेंटिंग एज द, और वो कॉन्ट्रास्ट भी ये करते हैं बड़े इंटरेस्टिंग, ये गोलवालकर के उसमें आपको मिलेगा कि, और एग्जाम्पल भी देते हैं कि जर्मनी में वो कहते हैं जर्मन्स आर द नेशन एंड जूज आर द कम्युनिटी। तो कोई एम्बिग्विटी भी नहीं आपको रह जाएगी कि वो क्या कहने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं उसमें। बिल्कुल। दूसरी बात जो आपने कही, हाँ, तो इसी पे नेशनलिज्म पे मैं ये कह रही थी कि ये भी बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग है कि डिबेट में आ रही हैं बातें। अभी हाल ही में हमारे दो बहुत पब्लिक फिगर्स सुहास पालसीकर और योगेंद्र यादव, और उसमें कुछ और लोग भी अब ज्वाइन किए हैं। ये जो डिबेट है, जो योगेंद्र यादव ने लिखा कि नेशनलिज्म हैज बीन स्टोलन, और उस पे बहुत अच्छा पालसीकर का जवाब भी आया इंडियन एक्सप्रेस के ही में। आई थिंक इनको हम वी कैन रीड देम विद ग्रेट प्रॉफिट टू फर्दर टेक फर्दर द आर्ग्यूमेंट जो आपने अभी सामने रखी है। तो थैंक यू सो मच पुरुषोत्तम, आई होप यू विल स्टे विद अस अ लिटिल व्हाइल मोर।
हाँ, थोड़ी देर तो रुकूंगा, 6
जी,
बजे करीब
मल्लिका जी को
जाऊंगा।
सुन के
6 बजे
जाइएगा।
करीब जाऊंगा जी।
जी।
हाँ,
So,
सॉरी, लेकिन मुझे जाना पड़ेगा, मैंने जैसे आपको बताया है। जी।
Thank you so much. Now it gives me great pleasure to invite Mallika Sarabhai to speak. I don't think she needs any introduction, but for the sake of form, let me just say that, as you all know, she's a world-renowned dancer, actor. She's heads the Darpan Academy, which she's been now running for many years, which was started by her mother, another very famous dancer, Mrinalini Sarabhai. And also like to mention that from both sides, she comes from families which were very prominent in the national movement. From her mother's side, her grandmother was a very well-known nationalist. Her aunt was in the Azad Hind Fauj. And of course, the Sarabhai family is well known for a number of very important figures who contributed to the national movement, including right from the days of Gandhiji, Anasuya Sarabhai, Mridula Sarabhai, the Sarabhai family as a whole, and, contributed to nation building in a very big way. She's also the recipient of the Padma Bhushan, and she's been a major publisher. So many, many, many facets to Mallika Sarabhai's personality. And I would now like to welcome her and ask her to share her thoughts with us.
Thank you. I feel a bit out of place here with so many academicians because I am not an academic. But I was raised as an Indian who could fearlessly speak about anything I wanted. And I find myself in a very contrary situation just now, because I'm sitting here in my institution, the institution that I believe is the secular corner of the city of Ahmedabad, one of the few. And across me is a multi-story building where I have an office also. And from the day when the Ram Janmabhoomi temple was inaugurated, the main notice board says Jai Shri Ram. Earlier than the 11 years that we talk about, I would have probably just wiped it out the next day. Today, there are several CCTV cameras focused there. I live in an area which beats the thali when they were asked to do, which lit the lamps when they were asked to do, which celebrated Rama when they were asked to do. So I wonder, is it worth the risk? This to me is already my democracy dead. The fact that I need to ask myself which battles are worth fighting in trying not to jeopardize the other, perhaps larger battles that one is fighting today is frightening. In all this bleakness and the mayusi that Shabnam spoke about comes Mr. Mamdani. It was for me a lighting of a lamp in democracies across the world, because there is Trump as well, and you have the Melonis, and you have all of them. And yet, in the city of New York, in Manhattan, a man who is the antithesis of everything, who is the phobia of all phobias, is able to ignite millions of young minds,
Yes.
is able to talk and do WhatsApps in Urdu and in Spanish and in English and probably in an African language. And he is standing against the biggest warlords, I call them, because there is so much money there that Cuomo had. So much money, so much, he even had Clinton endorsing Cuomo. And yet this young man, with contributions of $10 and more contributions of volunteers, has done the impossible. And remember, that's the first Gujarati that this regime hasn't said, Apna Gujarati hai. I think he's more Gujarati than Dhoklas and Garba. But that's not a Gujarati that we want to acknowledge. Here, for the first time, is a different kind of Muslim, and not a victim Muslim, not the terrible cover that we remember of the Muslim man, the tailor, begging to be kept alive. This is a thinking, articulate, empowered young person who wears his views on his sleeve. Can you imagine in Jewish New York saying Israel is wrong? It requires a courage. And I look around me and I say, why do we not in India have this courage?
Yes.
If democracy is today at stake, and it is, and yes, we have been living in an 11-year emergency, which is much more emerging every day, then where are the people of the kind who led the farmers protest? That was an incredible protest.
Right.
Amazing. Where are the students? Where are the voices? Is it that our poverty and desperation and desperate need for a job makes us completely mute? Is that what the reason is? India has never been an actual democracy. Most of India has voted very wisely most of the time. But about being active democratic citizens on a daily basis or a monthly basis, we've never been. Have you ever heard of a referendum happening, even in a municipal corporation, about what is right and what is wrong? That is, to me, democracy. Do I know who my MLA is? Do I know who my municipal councillor is? No, because they are faceless people. They have no voice, they have no face. So then, when we talk of democratic values, as Purushottamji said, it's not only about voting. It's about a consciousness. But do we have the time for that consciousness, or are we struggling so much just to survive, keeping our heads down, just to say, my daughter will cross the road and she will come back unraped? Is it that that is so large a part of our lives that to be democratic, to ask questions, has become the greatest luxury? What is it? What is it? Why are we not asking? All the people listening into this seminar, are we asking every day, why is this wrong? Are we able to raise our voice? If not, what do we do to get the collective strength? To do a Mamdani here, or many Mamdanis?
Yes.
We are looking at what the complete dissolution of the Federal Republic is happening here. I happen to be Chancellor of the Kerala Kalamandalam University in Kerala, and I know what Kerala as an opposition state is facing from the central government when no money is released, when they are starved, when money that is due to them is also not released, what it does to an economy. Are we concerned about that? Are we even concerned about, as the speaker said, are we concerned what is happening in Gaza? Or are we only concerned about our livelihood? Our livelihood cannot bring a democracy. Then the Abrahamization of Hinduism that is happening in the name of Hindutva, 10 rules, you follow these rules, you're a good Hindu. Hinduism isn't about that. Hinduism is about If I pick up this phone and say, this is my goddess, nobody can question it. It is my goddess, because that is the philosophy that I come from. So then what does the Abrahamization of Hindutva doing? We are following Islam, we are following Judaism, we are following Christianity. We are doing exactly what we profess to hate, because that is how you keep people not asking questions. That is how you ask people to lower their heads and follow the rules. And are we a nation that likes rules? Feudalism was alive for hundreds of years. Do we want a Maibab? Is that the kind of DNA that we have for hundreds of years, that there might be little sparks of other things? But is that not really what the Indian mentality wants? I don't know. I'm asking you. I fear it is. I fear that given the choice of having a choice or having a rule that you follow and say, this is my fate, is part of our DNA, in which case democracy is not for us. We do need an authoritarian Maibab to tell us exactly what to do, and then we can leave everything up to fate and luck and not have to take a choice. Democracy is about choice. My battery is being changed in my camera. You will continue hearing my voice, but you might not see me for a few minutes. Is it easier not to be democratic? Is democracy itself not like what I understand Hinduism to be, which is you ask questions continuously. You have to find your own answers. It's too much hard work. It's much easier, much simpler, and much less conscience involving to say, किसी और ने हमने कह दिया, किसी और का decision था, तो हो गया सब. Is it not? Isn't democracy also like that, where you actually need to be an alert citizen more than once every 5 years? And we don't want to be. Even getting us to go and vote. I have to tell you a very personal experience. In 2009, after having spent 5 years going around the nation, talking to people and saying, can I get a band of 200 people together who don't concern themselves with party politics, who only want to govern India better so that the last person gets the dignity that they need to get? Will somebody join me? Will you give up 7 years of your life, 2 years pre-election to get work done, and then 5 years, if you get elected, to form a bloc, whatever our politics, to say, we are here to govern India as it needs to be governed? At the end of 2009, I had nobody who was willing to take the plunge. So I said to myself, Mallika, you take the plunge, see what happens. You've never fought an election. So I stand as an independent. I have Mr. Advani and a host of others standing against me. You know, Mr. Advani has been the MP from Gandhinagar, Ahmedabad, for 25 years. But nobody has seen him because he's never bothered to come here. Other people canvass for him. So he's never been here. I have to tell you that when a woman stands as an independent, all the parties become an old boys club. When Mr. Advani was at a public function talking of Ram Janmabhoomi, talking of religion, talking of Brahminism, and I go to the election commission to complain, nothing happens. If I sing a song on the road and block a Congress or a BJP car, I get reprimanded immediately. So something, my friends, is also wrong with the system. It's not only about EVM cheating, and it's not only about people being bribed. That also I have seen. I have seen it because I had not the money to be able to have booth level workers, and I have seen what happens. I have gone into constituency where everybody would have voted for me, and being told, क्या करे, हमें 500 रुपये दे दिए और कल रात को बिरयानी खिला दी, तो कैसे हम वोट न करें? I have been to constituencies where women have said to me, Mallika Ben, the political boss was standing inside the booth. He can have my hut destroyed tomorrow. He can pick up my daughter, and there is nothing I can do. I know how corrupt they are. I know that nothing will happen, but I am terrified. So the election machinery also is anti-democratic, undemocratic, whatever you want to call it. But so it's up to us as citizens. There's nobody else. The systems are all wonky. The systems are all corrupt. But if we want to resuscitate the democratic spirit in us, we need to become the vigilant ones, not the vigilantes, the vigilant ones, the active ones. There is no day off if we want a genuine democracy. You can't say, "Bhai, मैं तो छुट्टी पे हूँ, अगले हफ्ते देख लेंगे." It's not possible. And I'm not sure that we are mature enough of people, or we are safe enough for people as individuals, enough in number, to be able to say, "Hi, what are you doing today?" "I'm actually trying to rebuild democracy." So in that case, I leave you with some questions. Are we right to be a democratic nation, or do we really want to be the kind of autocracy that we are today? People seem very happy. Yes, you demonize some people, but hey, so what? And if we think we deserve a democracy, if we genuinely believe in people power, because that's what a democracy is about, if we believe in people power, then you and I and us, we are the people. We need to find that power. We need to find that voice. We need to scream and shout all the time, every day. Ask yourself the question, should we be worried that our democracy is in crisis? I leave the answer to you. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Thank you, Balikaji. I think you've raised very many important issues and basically also said that the buck stops with us. And this is where we need to begin to ask questions, and questions which then lead to action. You know, it's not enough to wait for others to begin the story. We have to begin the story with ourselves, wherever we are. And I think a very important question you asked is, what has happened to those people, for example, who participated in the fantastic Kisan movement? You know, I think it's a very, very important question, because I think it partly answers the question you've raised: do we really want a democracy or not? I think there are enough people who've shown us enough times that they do want a role, to play a role in determining their own present and future, you know. But I think somewhere at the leadership level and the party level, there is a disconnect. We kind of assume that the peasants who came out, the farmers who came out, the kisans who came out, will only come out for livelihood issues. We do not give to them the dignity of believing that they actually have ideas about much beyond their livelihood. You know, this is the rice bowl theory of history, where those who are hungry, you know, can only be given rice and they can't think of anything else. This is a theory which was disproved by our freedom struggle, where the poorest of Indians were rallied by Mahatma Gandhi and the whole freedom struggle into a massive movement where they were fighting for the country. They were not just fighting for some specific economic demands or some specific social demands. You know, there was that the poor can have a vision of the world and of their country and a desire for a better future. I think so. Their disconnect. How is it that we don't think of organizing, protest on the issue of Gaza? If it's for the political parties and the civil society to reach out to ordinary people and ask them to come out, explain to them, that's what the freedom struggle did. That's what our left movement also did when the workers used to come out onto the streets on social issues, on national issues, But now it's, we don't want to go beyond Jantar Mantar, and even that's a very small pace. And in Bombay, they didn't even allow the political party leaders to come out and protest on Gaza. Just last week, they detained them early in the morning, and it was a handful of left parties who were organizing a protest in Bombay at the, I think, Azad Maidan, if I'm not mistaken. So I think you raised very, very fundamental issues. Thank you very much. I know you can't stay longer for the discussion, because I'm sure many people will want to ask these questions and discuss with you and give their own opinions. But I think the chat box is getting quite full with their opinions, which I'm sure Shabnam will pass on to you.
And I
And
promise I shall respond.
thank you so much. Thank you. No. I'd now like to invite Professor Vasavi. Are you there? And
Yeah.
unmute
Yeah.
yourself? Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay, this is Professor Vasavi. If I may introduce you briefly, Professor Vasavi is a sociologist and a social anthropologist who has been a professor latest at the Institute of Advanced Study in Bangalore, and before that she was at the Indian Institute of Management in Ahmedabad. She's an activist as well and spends a lot of her time working, which she can maybe tell us about, working in the field with different groups for different causes. And we are really very happy, Professor Vasavi, to welcome you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shabnam, for organizing this, and Professor Mukherjee for anchoring this. What I'd like to do today to address some of the key issues about the decline of democracy, I'd like to flag two concerns. One is the extent to which we need to understand the embeddedness and the internalization of Hindutva as a system, going beyond the political system. And secondly, to address some of the concerns flagged by Shabnam. How do we meet this challenge? How do we foster a platform of resistance against this rising authoritarianism? So basically, many of us know the extent to which, especially since the past 11 years, all our democratic systems have been co-opted, the judiciary, the electoral system, the education system, etc. The economic and media systems are now serving very small private capital interests, and a very punitive regime has been deployed against all forms of dissent. While much of this is known and really forms the bedrock of the Hindutva being promoted through the system, through institutions, I think something which is of more concern is for us to understand why have all these trends been accepted and legitimized, and as the previous speakers have highlighted, why has it been silently made inroads into our life, into our society as such? To look at this, I want to understand Hindutva as a system in which it has made its registration at a deep emotional level in society. This is evident in the extent to which it has drawn on cultural idioms, on cultural symbols, and therefore legitimized itself as being overall for the good of the people. Right from the time in which the idea of Amrit Kal was presented to the most recent one in which Operation Sindoor has been deployed and promoted, we see the extent to which there is no opposition to the actual depredations against democracy. So in many ways, the claims to do what are historical wrongs and invoking mythological greatness have combined to make an aura of greatness, an aura in which individuals get recognition, communities get recognition. There is a sense of arrival and a sense of high achievement as a collective. All of these have combined to make not only religious nationalism, but they have legitimized many, many actions in which there is a deeper, both personal and collective engagement at the societal level. For example, some of these are visible in the extent to which rituals which were family and community-based have become public spectacles. We've seen that in the case of Ayodhya, in the extent to which Kumbh Mela was telecast and promoted, and it became part of a big national level pilgrimage. All of which have gone on to make very virulent nationalism, in which exclusion is the primary and foundational principle. Practices which are private, what we can eat, what we can wear, and who we can marry, have become subject to public scrutiny. And public institutions of health and education, which should promote larger collective goods, have become part of private gains. It's also in this context that a combination of resentment, of hatred, fear, have all been deployed both by the state and by vigilantism as forms of violence, especially against religious minorities. And I think it's also in this context, in this larger ways in which Hindutva as a system legitimizes authoritarianism is evident in the extent to which the leader is treated not as an elected representative who should be accountable and held to certain norms and processes, but is seen as a moral being who combines both monarchy and divinity. And it's in this context, and which is perhaps more worrying, is that there is now, given the spread of Hindutva as a system, there is a competitive Hindutva that has set in, which is that Hindutva is now being promoted by non-BJP political parties also. We are seeing this very explicitly in Karnataka, where the Varnasi rituals are being reproduced in the Kaveri, in which deities and statue buildings have also been promoted. And across the country, we are seeing this competitive Hindutva being reproduced by caste groups, which also seek superiority versus each other, and new kinds of jati boundaries are being fostered. So all of this, I think, highlights the extent to which the decline in democracy and the rising authoritarianism has not only been legitimized, but it has been made accepted through weaponizing culture itself. And this is a much more formidable force, and therefore requires us to see that the challenges to addressing this requires not just a political action, that we come together not just at election times, but we engage with all these issues at a much more everyday and a regular level. So I just want to then, in this context, flag some ways in which we can address this. One is, I think, both the previous speakers have highlighted the extent to which there's been silence, not only in the part of the middle class, but there's been inadequate engagement. Much of this is a result not only of fear, but also because of the ways in which there is hesitation and even indifference, especially among the middle class, who are now actually economically doing quite well, given the kind of booming markets and the new kinds of economies, the urban global economy, which has benefited a very thin strata of groups. What we are seeing has, in the many kind of platforms that have come together, is not only very poor attendance, but the complete absence, especially of youth. And I think these are concerns that we should address, both the absence of youth and the fact that the middle class, who are now really the public relations, the part of the public relations system of the Hindutva, we are not able to reach them at all. The second issue is also the need for us to look at constituents as farmers, women, youth, Dalits, even gig economy workers, given that the fact that in the urban areas, the service economy is the largest economy. So I think working with these constituencies on various levels on their issues would be very important. But overall, I think there are three other issues which we need to factor in if some of the issues of declining democracy have to be addressed. One is to recognize that the democratic deficits that we talk about have, of course, as institutions are very visible, the changes ever since BJP has come into power. But the foundation of much of this democratic deficits can be traced to the fact that the caste system is consolidated. It is not only a social system, but that it is the basis of the economic system also, in which exclusion is built in. We also need to recognize that India has the most highly differentiated education system, in which any forms of leveling is not recognized at all or not made possible. At the same time, in other various domains also, level playing fields are not made possible or available. So it's in this context that groups should come together. The activities that we should undertake are, first of all, to address not only these democratic deficits, not just during elections, as many of us have been doing, literally as firefighting strategies, but to look at promoting democracy as a quotient, has ways, as Professor Agrawal said, has value systems, has sentiments, all of which must be upheld both at the individual level and at the collective and public level. It's very important to work on this because in the workshops that we've conducted, we see that very few people really understand the history and the meaning and the significance of democracy. It very often is just a slogan of linked to voting rights and not to democracy as a value system at all. So a lot of orientation, workshops, outreach programs, engagements, both with mass culture and popular culture, and through very formal training systems have to be done if the democracy quotient has to be promoted. Thirdly, I'd want to say that in engaging with issues of democracy, we also need to take a much more broader perspective. As Shabnam has flagged this, we live in very tumultuous systems, and this tumultuous system or times are really a reflection of the coming together of three forms of emergencies. These are the economic emergencies in which great economic inequalities mark the world, not just India, but across the world. We're seeing extremely hierarchical and varied and challenging economic structures that have come into being. Secondly, of course, is the declining of democracy and the rise of authoritarianism across the world. And third is the climate change issue, in which a large numbers, not only of livelihoods, but lives are also threatened. So it is only if we can combine the need to address all these three, only then can we actually reach out to making democracy a more meaningful and engaged practice or an engaged possibilities for many people. So it's in this context that even to look at democratic possibilities, we need to forge alternative systems and ideas, alternative knowledge forms, alternative structures, so that many of the deficiencies of what exists as macro structures, economy and polity can be addressed. I say this very advisedly, and I want to cite this example since the Samyukt Kisan Morcha was cited. It is, of course, one of the most well-known, formidable, successful, and in fact, one of the only successful challenges to the draconian policies that were formulated by the BJP. But at the same time, this SKM failed to provide an alternative to agricultural policies, and therefore we still are hung with an old system which is ridden with problems. So in that context, alternative economic systems, not only just agriculture, but in all domains are required, alternative education systems, health systems, architecture, building. All of these need to be rethought, and alternatives which privilege democracy, which privilege diversity, which privilege decentralization are required. I think it's very important in this context to say that we don't need mega narratives which are both monocultural or globally valid, but those systems and alternatives which are valid locally but which can be endorsed at higher levels are required. Overall, I want to say that in seeking to implement or to assert democratic values, to challenge Hindutva both as a system and as a political economic order, we need to then come up with alternatives in which not only the democracy quotient is encouraged, but ways in which social justice, economic equity, and democracy at all levels can be encouraged. Thank you for this, and I look forward to your questions.
Ridula, you are mute.
I'm so sorry, I forgot. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Vasavi. You brought in many new dimensions into the discussion, especially in terms of the linkages between that need to be established between what you're calling the broader Hindutva system, the different elements in it, and how one needs to integrate struggles of different groups, sections, and struggles over different causes. For example, you mentioned the issue of climate change and how the impact of that and people who suffer from that, how those issues have to be brought in and integrated with the other issues in order to have a holistic understanding of what an alternative democratic order should be. I think these are extremely important issues which you have raised, and I hope that in the discussion these will get addressed. So now I think it's about 6:15, and I think, Shabnam, we have enough time for questions.
Yeah, we have almost 40 minutes,
Okay. Why
except that
don't,
2 of our speakers have gone.
Huh.
But we-
but we can have a discussion and there can be others can come in as well.
yes.
So would you like to conduct that?
No, you are conducting that.
No, I can take I'm just trying to see where are the questions.
No, I think people can raise their hands.
That's what I was trying to look for.
There are a few questions in the chat box, but otherwise, people can raise
Are there
their hands.
any hands yet? Are there any hands yet? Can you see any hands yet?
Not right now.
Okay. And people can unmute, right? They have the facility to do that?
If
Or are we too, or is it that you have to unmute them? Ask to unmute, it says. When I'm pressing on a
No,
particular person, it says ask to unmute.
now they can unmute. I have clicked on that.
Okay, you've removed that, so maybe. So let's see if I'm just trying to see. So mine, I can't see very many people at one time. So
Mridula, my cursor is giving me some problem. There are questions. If somebody can scroll through chat box.
okay,
There was
I'll
one
do
from
I'll do that.
Anish.
I'll do that.
Um,
Somebody speaking?
yes, I'm Shyama
Yes,
from
please
the
go ahead
US.
and ask your question.
Yes, yes. I was talking about international participation from like-minded people. It has happened in India before with Indian People's Tribunal.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, somebody else was speaking. I think because people have been unmuted, I think, somebody else was speaking. But go ahead,
Yeah,
Shama.
yeah. So, there was this. I think Shabnam was a participant. I remember there was this justice from South Africa, Justice Yaqub, who served in Nelson Mandela and all of that. This was
Mhm.
called Indian People's Tribunal, Justice Dawood, way back in 2000, way before Godra. I don't see much of that. But
Yes.
one thing I have noticed in the US, for Palestine and all of that, it is usually students who are out on the streets. Mamdani faced a lot of opposition from Democrats, mainstream Democrats who
I
calls
believe so.
themselves
Yes.
progressive.
Yes.
Here we don't have this. The things you guys are doing with Shabnam and Anhad and getting in people who could contribute and raise the voice and raise the conscience of the society come in through these kind of things, informal chats by your own initiation. We don't have it here. Maybe it'll be a learning experience for people here too. I'll try to include a few folks who you might feel, obviously Shabnam or you will have to vet it, but I think that's important. You know what I mean?
Yes, certainly.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm from Architects for Peace.
Okay.
This was an organization started during Cold War. It was very active back then, but now I wanted to raise. We have consultative status in the UN. I raised about the issues of CAA and all that, but they are like, defanged. They deplatform me also. Here, that's a lot of it happening. For example, Ta-Nehisi Coates. He was the first one who went to Africa, who went to Africa and to Palestine. He's a black, great writer who supported Obama and was very influential in Obama coming second time. He doesn't even get an arena anymore, and there is nothing he can do. He's just vanished in thin air. Things like this, what you're doing, keep those voices alive and relevant. Thank you, guys. I think I've taken my time. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There was a hand up, but now I can't see that.
You can ask if there's anybody. Have you unmuted everyone or?
Yes, people mute themselves.
Okay. Is there anybody who's waiting to ask a question or make a comment? Please speak up.
Hello. So
Yes,
I am Anvesh, and I
yes,
had written a question on the chat. So I will just read it. And
yes, yes,
this was in response to Purushottam Agarwal's emphasis on nationalism. So my
yes.
question is, how can we then move towards an internationalist conception of democratic participation of people? And isn't nationalism also problematic in trying to build people's unity and solidarity, like we have seen during cross nation state conflicts like India and Pakistan's just a few days back?
Right. Uh, okay. Well, maybe I guess since Purushottam is not here, maybe I can try and answer your question. And also what he said. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, you are audible.
All right. So I think that I think Purushottam also made it clear that what he's talking about is, as he said, a democratic, inclusive, a very different kind of nationalism. And I think, again, if we go back to refer to the kind of nationalism that was promoted by our struggle for freedom, where fighting for the rights of Indians or talking about building national unity was never seen as being in conflict with the rights of other nations. In fact, on Palestine, for example, they always took very advanced positions. Right from the beginning, both Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru condemned the formation of Israel and said that how this is an attempt to pit Jewish religious nationalism against Arab nationalism, and that this is wrong, and so many other examples. I mean, in fact, the whole idea of even after independence of non-alignment and Afro-Asian solidarity, the idea was that independence in the colonies, it should be the independent nations who should collaborate with each other, not giving up their nationalism, because nationalism is very important for them in the anti-colonial struggle and also in the process of nation building. But that nationalism was not a revanchist nationalism. It was not a jingoistic nationalism. It did not need an other. It did not need an enemy, which is the kind of thing that is projected now in Operation Sindoor and all that. We are always, it's a very, very different kind of nationalism. I think, if that answers your question.
Is it possible to intervene for another minute, or should I wait
Yeah,
for
go
others?
go ahead. I don't see
Yeah,
any
so
other hands
basically, I
right
mean,
now.
I am talking more towards, let's say, the left, because, for example, there was a All India general strike planned for the 20th of May. And then C2 came out with a statement that we are suspending or postponing the strike because of the current situation between India and Pakistan. So when these sort of situations come up, even the, let's say, whatever liberal or left voices also are stifled by the kind of nationalism that they embody. And this is my question, that
No,
I'm
you
not
see,
even talking about the right. So,
I think that
yeah.
if I remember, I do recall the exact situation that you were talking about, and I remember reading the statement that the left parties gave out. I think it was almost we were in the middle of the conflict, and when there is a border conflict or armed conflict going on like that, obviously the mood among the people and the total atmosphere is not conducive to that kind of all India action that they were planning, and nobody knew when this conflict was going to end. And obviously, you need a period of peace and quiet in which to be able to organize, mobilize, get people. And also, it's a question of the total political atmosphere. If people's minds are elsewhere, that is not the best time. So I did not see that as something, which they were succumbing to, but that was an inevitable situation, not of their making, which they were in, and they responded to that.
There is
Thank you.
There's a raised hand. I see Anjali raised hand. I'm reading. Anjali?
Yeah, I'm Anjali from Bhopal.
Yes.
Uh, uh, Democracy actually how do we work from bottom up? Because democracy requires a lot of hard work in terms of establishing dialogue, in terms of establishing democratic processes. And we don't really have a democratic culture in our own communities, in our own families, in our own organizations, in our own political fronts, in dialoguing across differences. So, and that kind of hard work, we thought that we would do it through educational systems, and we thought that the government needs to be responsible for the educational system. But and to some extent, I find now, I've been in the civil society sector most of my life, but I find now that because of the constitution being implemented through government institutions have been the most democratic. So this democratic, because of the constitution, because, for example, reservation or positive discrimination, it is not even compulsory on civil society organizations to have positive discrimination, or on political parties either, so, or parties, or kind of political formations. So this ability to be able to listen to each other, to be able to empathize across differences and across classes and castes, is something that I find totally lacking. And in my generation, we have not built up. I mean, I'm in the 60s. So we have, it struck me only a few years, about a decade ago, that this is the kind of work which is lacking, and the language is lacking for it. So how do we build that? It's all very well to ask government a lot of questions, and we all do, and we should continue to do. But the practice of democracy really is lacking, and now it seems it's increasing across the world, this lack of democratic practice. So how can we come together in small groups, and then build through federations from that, as to how to dialogue and not really accept differences, but be able to dialogue across differences to come to some kind of a common understanding. That is what I feel is what democracy should build up. And then at the political party, and at the national level and at the international level, resolution of conflicts, if we have those capacities of dialogue developed more and more, then ability to resolve conflicts peacefully, which I feel is the most important function of democracy, would perhaps proceed a little.
Thank you. Thank you. Shabnam, would you like to respond to that?
Hello.
Shabnam, would you like to respond to that?
Well, I wish I knew the answer. I would want to say that it's a humongous task, and you are very right that if the institutions and the organizations and the civil society itself, if there is no democracy there in the functioning, I think it all originates from within the family. We have to, one is that this is a long battle. We have to start from democratizing our own families. That is what I feel. Because even people who are full-time activists, who are feminists, who are working round the clock in fighting to safeguard democracy, their own homes are not democratic and they are not gender just. If we begin from there, and of course that is just one thing, but beginning from there is very important, because everyone who's coming out, there are activists who are within their homes, they are not working like an activist should work. I'm talking of male activists. So the first step is to treat your own family, turn it into a democratic structure. And for women who do not assert equal rights within their families, They need to do that. They need to start that. Begin from there. Of course, we have to include that in the school system. We have to include that in all our larger civil society and all the. But that is very, very far away, because right now we cannot expect this government, who is actually making every democratic structure into an authoritarian space. And if we take the example of what is called the rationalization of schools, the name of rationalization of schools, in the last 10 years, they have closed down over 1 lakh government schools. And rationalization is talking about closing down small schools which are at the village level and bringing them all the resources to have a very nice school at the district level. So that is actually the reverse process of democracy. And as a result, the young, especially girls, will not be able to access education at all, because no parent in rural India is going to send the girl child to 2 or 4 kilometers away to attend a school, which is a better school. So, I mean, that is just one example. I don't know if I can fully reply to your question. Maybe others can add to it.
Thank you so much. We have other names here. There's Dr. Darshan Pal. Would you please like to come forward and ask your question?
Yes, I am Dr. Darshan Pal from Punjab,
Yes,
from Sanyukt Kisan Morcha.
yes.
First of all, I will like to say that the grand narrative which Agrawal ji said, I don't think the pre-colonial era, when the nationalist struggle was going on, the nationalism of that time, and after we got the independence, in this period after 1947, the say sub-nationalities in South India, in say for Punjab and Bengal, we can't think of a grand nationalism, or I don't think as Hindutva say the Hindu nationalism, what type of nationalist should be addressed. But because I am from Punjab and I know from the southern states also, that grand nationalism to be built up, it should be theorized what type of grand nationalism that be, number one. Number two, I want to say in that also that I don't think that grand nationalism will be there in India so far as the diversity in languages, culture, psychology of the nations is concerned, because many of the India has a many nations in itself, and nationalism is difficult to be settled, say, built up in all of India. That is my view, number one. Number two, so far as the farmers movement is concerned, there was one comment from Vasavi that we could not build some alternative agrarian policies. That's right. That's right. That is the still objective in front of the farmers movement. And I think the farmers movement of all of from all over India, they under the banner of Sanyukt Kisan Morcha, non-political Kisan Mazdoor Morcha, they are still striving to come together and to develop some alternative. We are going to oppose this US-India free trade agreement and other issues also. We are going to oppose all those things. We are going to have a big programs on 9th of this July in the All India strike also. So we think that the struggles of these sections of the farmers, workers, they could bring some alternative struggles in India which can fight out this Hindutva fascism and this dictatorial attitude of the BJP. Second, these are the two things which I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I may, I mean, I cannot obviously predict what Purushottam ji would have said, but I would say that obviously what he meant was not a nationalism of the anti-colonial variety, because that time and phase is now over. But obviously, even if we talk about farmers' movement and we want to bring the farmers of the whole country together, then obviously there is an idea of the nation. It is not, there are nationalities and there is the nation also. So, but if we are to have a united movement, if we are to have even solidarity, when the Kisan movement was there, for example, 2021, from farmers from all over came and showed their solidarity, and at least there was an effort to include other areas as well. So if we are to talk about that, then obviously there is embedded in that an idea of a nation where cooperation and federalism are part of the conception of the nation, not a nation where one part suppresses the other or one part is more favored than the other, but one in which all the different units of the nation, however you may define them, have their autonomy, have their rights, and yet they are able to come together, even as a class. So I think that is his conception, if I may, interpret him. And now go on to Rukaiya.
Yes,
Maybe.
thank you. I would like to respond to Anjali ji,
Yes.
when she said that yes, our education systems have not responded to what it should be, and therefore there is a need to work on that. Since the problem before us is so large, like what happened before independence, multiple different types of societal responses we will be requiring. That's what Malika also mentioned. We would want to see that we work with youth. And I would like to share some experience that we are doing. Is in Mumbai, we are working with colleges, NSS, where we are asking the students to become more accepting the different cultures and different parts, of the society. We are making them non-violent. We ask them to take up the book, and I may share the details about it, on non-violent communication. So when you start with, as Shabnam was talking about, your own house, your own surrounding, your own friends, and you try to be a little more non-violence in a democratic manner. This is how. So we take case. We, as a country, we require political will, we require activism, we require activities like Shabnam de Mere Ghar Aake To Dekho, or what we do. All of us need to work much more, as Malika mentioned, about like 24/7, to be able to fight such mammoth problem that we are faced with. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rukaiya ji. I now request J. Chandar to come forward.
Yeah, good evening, Mridula ji. I'm Jagdish Chandar from Bhopal. Are you
Yes.
getting me?
Yes,
Getting me?
yes, please go
Okay,
ahead.
yeah. See, while we, we have to approach multiple, it's a multi-pronged kind of strategy, like my previous colleague was talking about. You have
Yeah.
to adopt multi-pronged strategy to bring in the, changes which you, or the desired changes which you feel should be in it to build a strong democratic society. While I appreciate this point of view, but then, I was wondering that I thought to bring about the changes or the impact which changes the society. Like we just had one person that's called Ambedkar. We made him, and he transformed the society the way the society was thinking, and it conducted. We produced one Gandhi, and then you had its impact on not only on India but then across the globe. So that the Gandhian thought, that then Ambedkar, democratic values. The problem today I find is that there is none we can fall back on, or we have failed rather to produce even a single person who could, after those Nehru and maybe probably after Indira Gandhi. So you find you have produced, I'm sorry to use the word, but then I have to use. We have produced only the pygmies to lead our society. Our society, as we evolve, you better know that we live in a very very complex kind of situation today. Like if I call it that a cause and relationship kind of effect, okay, kind of phenomena we have we are living today. We have destroyed the education system, which inculcate the value system in our society. But then I was also in the contrast when I see that during Ambedkar or maybe Gandhi's time, we had a society which was totally illiterate. If not totally, more than 90% of our population was totally illiterate. But how could they transform the, how could they fight the evils and got independence? I'm really, and today you have, at least illiteracy, if I call it, you have 70% of your population is literate in that sense. And you have failed the nation. I would, have your kind of reaction that how to get out of this situation where, see Narendra Modi coming and then he starts his campaign with saying that I am a 56 inch kind of situation. We couldn't sense the signals which he was this transmitting, the conduct, the way he was speaking, and obviously the way you speak, you would conduct that way. The way you think, you would speak, and then the way you speak, you would conduct the same way. Okay. I know how you would build the society which could sense the kind of, and then with the result, what happens is that, what was that man? He was a, Atiq Ahmed or somebody, who was murdered in the daylight, right in the protection of police. That the state was protecting it and he was murdered there. So you have a kind of a democracy where you find this kind of situation happening. I'm really aghast seeing that, how to get out of this this situation.
Thank
you
you
very much. Thank you very
I
much.
think there are few other people. I see a hand from Sehejo. Sehejo? Hello?
I think Sejo has.
It was here just now.
Yeah. I think she got disconnected probably.
Oh, really? Okay. When she was trying to open. Oh, okay. Do you see any other hand?
Okay. I can speak now.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I absolutely agree with Vasavi that the rot is in how we have structured our caste society, which is, we cannot certainly go from what we have, patriarchy and caste, to what we want. And at the same time, we know that I also agree that with Anjali, that we have had democracy forced upon us, and it has worked in case of government institutions. But my dilemma is that using the whatever little democracy that we had, it is the right which has come to power and then occupied the spaces and then blocked democracy for others. So that is my dilemma, that democracy will have to be a kind of democracy which will not allow those values to, just opening spaces actually becomes dangerous, and it has become dangerous. The kind of popular appeal that, which goes in the name of democracy, okay, in the sense that it appeals to the self that is inculcated through all that caste and patriarchy. And then when people are amused by it, we don't know what to do, which is the chappan inch or other things that we've been referring to. So I think what we need is something which inculcates the democratic values, but does not allow space, democratic space that we create for the right wing to flourish. And how do we do that is my question.
Yes, that has been the classical dilemma in all democracies, because that's partly the cost that you pay for democracy, for being democratic, is that you do not give anyone the power to absolute power to stop people from having that space. Because when you do that, how that power is going to be used, whether it's going to be used against the right wing, or it's going to be used against the left wing, or it's going to be used against those in the center or wherever, that you no longer have control over. And therefore, all democracies, in fact, increasingly in the world today, we are facing that dilemma that the despots, as they are being called now, the autocrats, they are coming to power through the democratic system, using the democratic institutions, the democratic space that is there in society, and the democratic institutions, the electoral system, etc. So the answer is obviously, I don't know, it's a very difficult situation, and obviously it's not easy, but as was pointed out by Mallika Sarabhai, she began her speech with talking about the Mamdani story. The answer is ideological and political countering to occupy those spaces. It is when those spaces are not occupied, they're left vacant, that they get occupied by the wrong kind of forces, by the negative forces, by the autocratic forces. I think Professor Vasvi would like to come in. Thank you. Come.
Yes, thank you.
Asvi, just before you speak, because I think there are some questions which you can respond to. I'll just quickly read them. Arlene Manoharan says, I love the democracy quotient idea and would love to hear some concrete ways in which one can enhance and promote it. Then there is Sharmila who says, how can we prevent the removal of the word secularism from the constitution as citizens, social and political activists? Nadeem is asking, is this platform only those guys who are available, who already believe in democracy and want to save it in the current scenario? What about the large number of persons, people who are losing the values of democracy, especially media? And the last one is Sarla Jingan, which is a comment. I want to draw your attention to the fact that our middle class who are born Hindu have become, unfortunately, total Hindutva supporters to the extent that it is impossible to communicate with them. Actually, you feel suffocated when you are surrounded by them. These were in the chat box. So if with your comments, you can also reply to some.
Okay, thank you. I'll just reply to a few which are relevant to what I was talking about. Basically, to Sejo's point, which is very important about the extent to which sometimes restricted democracy, poses problems. This is a context, and I think Anjali also flagged it, where you have positive discrimination, which enables a most disadvantaged to get some democracy, and therefore there is recognition given to them. But there are other groups that feel marginalized or disadvantaged because someone subordinate to them has been privileged. So it's in this case where you see democracy becomes a threat to the privileged. And we're seeing this played out very, very specifically in India because of the extent to which we see OBCs as being most hostile to both Muslims and to Dalits, and most of the cases of violence are related to this. So it's in that context that the idea of resentment, but the idea that democracy must also promote the opportunity for being for all, opportunities equally on a common platform should be made available. That I think is very important. And it also links to the what Anjali was flagging about democracy, the need for us to engage with, and to the question about elaborating on democracy quotient, is to not only through formal education's transactions, but informally through outreach, through public culture, to various forms of awareness. We need to make sure that democracy is understood in its holistic way, that it is interpersonal dignity and respect. It must be in the family. It must be between understanding differences, but also negotiating conflict, etc. There are some of these other questions which I actually think are very broad-based and don't feel competent to address. But I also just want to say that something that has been highlighted here and there is the need to have multiple strategies. When I talked about groups coming together on a platform to reclaim, to actually strengthen democracy and to embed democracy in our culture and society, we need to think of multiple strategies. No textbook or derived, received knowledge can help us. It has to be rooted. At the same time, the ideas have to come from multiple sources. We need to think about ways in which a plurality of ideas and actions, but also different kinds of cultural symbols and cultural signifiers have to be both invoked and internalized. More specifically, I think it's in these contexts that we need to see the work of democracy not to be restricted to political issues, but that it must come down to a very basic general education awareness level. So these are some of my responses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ritula, there is one more comment in the chat box, which is a comment actually. Darshan Palji Farmers Movement has the capacity to make it bigger, pan-India democratic movement. In fact, most struggles have many things in common, as they suffer from the same tyranny. That is one, yes.
Okay.
I
That
don't,
is in the chat box.
it was in the chat. It is in the chat box.
Okay, so it's a comment, right?
There is Romila's comment. She's saying there is safety concern for those who really want to come forward to raise their voice.
अच्छा ये कहाँ है okay अच्छा I'm trying to yes what is the fund and safety concern yes
Want to respond to that, or otherwise you can conclude?
I think that is
just comments, yes.
Yeah, I'm just coming back to the screen. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think some of the comments which have come in, they are very perceptive and responding, I think, to the general spirit of the discussion today, which is actually to raise issues and to start thinking about the whole issue of what is happening to our democracy in original kind of ways. And I think we have had a variety of perspectives. The point raised by Romila is, of course, very, very relevant. And I think this is what Purushottam said in his opening statement also, that how we have learned to self-censor. We don't need to be told, don't speak. It's how the atmosphere gets built up, and it's also the message that you get from what's happening to other people. I think, for example, the whole episode with the professor from Ashoka University, Professor Ali Mahmoodabad, I think it was very clear to everybody in the academic world that it was all about sending a chilling message. It was all about telling other academics that, we are looking at you, we are watching out what you're doing. And, so be careful. And this is what we can do. You don't have to put 20 academics behind bars and keep them there for a few days. He got bail also, but with a very regressive court order. But I think it's very clear that this is what happens. And There are all kinds of reactions, that one comes across. One is, of course, of cynicism. ठीक है, तुम ये सब कर रहे हो, पर इससे होगा क्या? What's the point? I mean, even the point that somebody here is that you're talking to people who are thinking along the same lines. I don't think that's the point. I think even people who are thinking along the same lines to collectively come together in a public space, which is what a webinar is, and make those statements, have a discussion where ideas which are not accepted ideas, which are subversive ideas, are openly discussed, is a political act. And we should not undermine it. Political acts do not only occur on the street anymore. In fact, it's the social media where so much of the action is taking place. People are intimidated out of shape by being hounded in the social media. So I think the very fact of that there were more than 100 people today, as Shabnam said, the Anhad has started this after a very long gap. So people are not like accustomed even to, during COVID, there were a lot of these online seminars because that was the only way people could talk to each other. But after that, there's been a falling off, and then Anhad has had its own problems. But I think I think it's extremely important that we come together and keep the discussion alive, keep the debate alive about what is, and then we will learn. We don't know the answers. If we knew the answers, we wouldn't be sitting here. If there was no crisis, we wouldn't be in the position that we are in today. Self-censorship, silence. I mean, I know when Shabnam would also remember, I mean, and so many people here today would remember that in the 70s, for example, when the Vietnam, struggle was on and the Americans had occupied and all that, maybe the whole, I mean, in thousands students would be out on the streets protesting against what was happening in Vietnam. And I don't remember any government stopping the processions and saying you can't go in this route and you can't go on that route. I remember I used to march down all the main thoroughfares of Lutyens Delhi without any obstruction. And now even for 100 people to meet in Jantar Mantar is not possible. Ask Shabnam how many times they refused the permission even for that. You know, in a colony in South Delhi, I think it was Chitranjan Park, if I'm not mistaken, the residents wanted to get together and protest on something that had happened somewhere. I forget now the context. And they were told, the police said, no, you can't get together in your neighborhood park and have a political discussion and take political stands. Why? What's wrong with that? We've done it right through our freedom struggle, even during the British days. Meetings used to be held in the neighborhood Maidans. The Calcutta Maidan, the Bombay Maidan, everybody knows these were the venues of meetings, struggles, rallies. And now we don't have those spaces. Public spaces are being shut. All this needs to be talked about so that we don't forget. I think it's very important. I'm so grateful to Anhad and to Shabnam, who has been leading from the front in all this, that she's taken the trouble to bring all of us together to start so that we again start thinking and responding and discussing amongst ourselves these issues. It's extremely important that those who may be thinking alike, but they're not thinking identically. I think it's extremely important that we keep talking to each other. And as I said, keep hope alive and keep the flag flying. That's very, very important in difficult times. Shabnam?
Yeah, but there is one more hand there, so maybe I'll.
Okay, who's that? Where is it?
Kritika.
Kritika? Okay. Kritika, come on. Go ahead, Kritika.
Yes, good evening, Vidula ma'am, and Shabnam and everyone. So, first of all,
First of all, I would like to thank you for conducting this great session. I think it's very crucial for our youth generation uh, to to have a discussion on these things. Like usually, most of the youth is unaware of this fact that democracy is still in crisis, and they are not willing to accept this thing. So, in my surrounding, as you said that democracy is not just limited to politics. Uh, it's everywhere. And when we speak up of politics, I think it's the politics is existing everywhere in our home, in our corporate. So what I believe is that one should know the value of democracy and how it should be carried. And what I am seeing is like our youth is still being the been unaware of the texts which have been stolen and how things are being misinterpreted to them. So I think the right to democracy was that time only was taken away from them. They should know I think they should know all the universality and all the facts of what exists and what not. Also, yes, so this was the thing. And yes, it's more about they should know everything. Like they should have the right to know everything, and also uh, the confidence and the guts to speak up in society and wherever they have to speak about it. Uh, I think the more it's lacking there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Kritika.
Yes.
And thank you everyone for joining in. Thank you, Professor Mridula Mukherjee, Professor Vasvi, Purushottamji and Malika, who are not here with us. I think there have been many questions, but I think it's very important that we have restarted talking to each other, because there have been a very big gap and kind of a lull when all of us feeling very desperate, but were not being able to even talk to each other about what is happening in the country. There is fear, there is total lack of democratic spaces. They are, as Mridula said, they are, by the hour we are losing democratic spaces. But within those, I think we need to do many things which are subvertive. And I want to just take two examples, just share with you. One is, my colleague is here, Dev Desai from Gujarat. He was recently asked to, stand for vice sarpanch in his village. And although he doesn't live in the village, he goes there off and on. So he said, I will agree to it. He leads a lot of demonstrations with young people, lot of workshops and conversations in Gujarat, especially with his own community. So he said that I will agree to it if the whole village agrees that all communities have to be included in the committee, and women are included in the committee, which was unheard of in that village. So now I don't remember all the communities, but he insisted that there is representation from the Dalit community, from women, from Wagri community and other communities. So I think these are some small ways in which you can, wherever you have influence or in your neighborhood, you can do that. Second thing is, I live in Dwarka in Delhi, and we run a platform here which is called Dwarka Collective. We constantly keep organizing discussions and other things. Again, perturbed by the lynchings, perturbed by the hate, we were thinking of how to counter that in an area which is highly right-wing. It's a highly right-wing area where I live. So we decided to celebrate love, and we called it Jashne Mohabbat, which we had it just last Sunday. And we invited couples who had married on their own, love marriages. As part of those love marriages, somebody wrote that, it is, one doesn't feel safe if the minorities are there because there could be an attack. Now, in this program, with the audience all from Dwarka, we had two couples where it was an interreligious marriage between a Muslim and a Hindu. We had two couples with the intercaste marriages. So these are ways by which we can constantly keep on, not that one program or one, insistence in a village is going to change everything. But I think it is very important that wherever we are, in our own surroundings, beginning from, as I said, that beginning from our own homes, making our own households democratic and secular and gender just, and then working in the communities around, even if we are unable to do very large programs like the national conventions which Anhad used to do. I think it is important that wherever we are, we start engaging with people around us. And I'm glad that this conversation has started after a very long time. And I think it is, as Mridula has already said, that it is very important that, because talking to each other gives us the courage to continue the fight against a very draconian and very authoritarian regime. It is not easy. And everyone knows that it has not been easy. We have many of our colleagues, many of our journalist friends are in jails. Umar has been for more than 4 years. I don't know how many of you have heard the case of Bhind in Madhya Pradesh. 12 journalists called by the SP and beaten up brutally because they were covering the sand mafia, which was in the Chambal River. They were beaten brutally, their clothes removed, and then they were made to make videos and say that we have nothing against the police. Two of them, with great difficulty, escaped from there, reached Delhi, and that case is now, Supreme Court is hearing the case. And many others have been arrested. Only two managed to escape. So things are very, very difficult, and especially in smaller places, in villages, in states which are far off. I mean, most of the cases which happen in Chhattisgarh or Jharkhand or remote areas of various states, we don't even come to know it. Especially the attacks on journalists and attacks on Christian community, because in rural areas, the Christian community is very spread, very thinly. They are not together. So things are, and of course, attacks on all the constitutional bodies. They are being made totally redundant. And at the same time, most of the things which were not in favor of this government are being removed from the internet. Internet is being sanitized at a very fast pace, which many of us are not realizing. So these are very big challenges. I think it is very important that after a long time, we have come together, we have spoken to each other, and we will take this forward so that these conversations do not stop. Even if they do not change anything on the ground, even if they can keep people like us in a positive mind and gives us strength to keep on fighting and keep on speaking, I think that is more than enough if we are able to achieve that. And once we start doing it, once we start regrouping, we will, of course, find it's a very big thing that Darshanpal Singh ji joined this webinar today. He is a big leader of the Kisan movement, one of the 5-6 leaders who led the Kisan movement. Right. So it is a privilege for us that he was here. And I think we should continue these conversations, and they will show some way ahead. These are difficult times, but nevertheless, if Hitler could be defeated, so could these forces be one day. We might and might not be there, but for the next generation, it is our duty to keep the conversations on and keep this fight on. And thank you very much, everyone, especially Professor Mridula Mukherjee and Professor Aditya Mukherjee, with whom Bhavna and I had this conversation of feeling very restless, wanting to start something again. And as always, they have been very supportive and the backbone of all our work in Delhi and even otherwise. So thank you very much. We would inform.
Thank you, Shabnam.
We will inform you about after 15 days, we will have another webinar, and we would keep you informed about that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Shabnam.
Thank you, Shabnam.
Thank you.
Mukherjee, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Vasvi.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
I see Naveen Kumar here. Is this the famous Naveen Kumar? We see his videos every day. The journalist.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sadlaji. So I will close the meeting. Bhavna, have you copied the chat?
Yes, so far, yes.
Okay.
And the transcript?
Transcript would, I think, go to Joe's computer.
Acha.
It is their Zoom link. We couldn't get a Zoom link for various reasons. It is very complicated to get a subscription for some reason.
Really? Okay. All right. Good night then, everybody.
Good night. We have people from across India. I see Azad Naqshbandi from Kashmir.
How nice.
Oh.
And they from Gujarat, and people spoke from Bhopal and Bombay, and
right.
Vasvi from Karnataka. So good.
Yes.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Bye, good
Good
night.
night. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Bhavna, you are the host.
Good night.
Thank you, ma'am.
ma'am. ओके बाय पहले तो मौलाना ही छुपा देना
भावना तुम्हें बंद करना पड़ेगा because you are the host.
Okay.
Hello, Shabnam, are you there still? Are you there? We left.
I think Shabnam has left.
She left already. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Bhavna. This is Supriya here.
Hi,
Actually, I
Supriya.
was a little bit engaged with another meeting, so by the time I joined, I think I missed some of the deliberations when we're talking about the Christians being beaten up and all. I wanted to ask if at all we can talk about it at a different time, maybe a few people or whoever, but I don't know what the general response would be, because the Christians are looking to the civil society for help. They're simply being beaten up and trashed, and churches being vandalized, and especially in the villages. They don't try that in big cities. And also there is a lot of concern, and the church is looking to the civil society. And I did mention to some of the friends that we were going to have this meeting, but just because there was another prayer meeting actually, and I couldn't get out of it, I wanted to. But then anyway, so what do you suggest at this time? How can we go about it? I know we missed.
Let me just talk to Shabnam, and maybe we can organize something with a small
Yes.
group of people, and
Yes, please.
we can talk about it.
Yeah, that'd be ideal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you so
Looking
much.
forward. Really. Thank you. God bless.
Same here.
We'll be in touch. And also this recording, I just heard somebody say something. Do we get a
Yeah,
copy of
yeah. We'll share the recording with everyone.
on the groups that you put it up, right?
Yeah,
On the
yeah.
same group where you put it up. Okay. And
Yeah.
also the chats and all. Thank you so much. Yeah. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Very good.
Thank you. You
Very
too.
good.
Thank you.
Take care. Take care.
मैं परेशान हूँ